was super close to my dad. I was there when he died. Like, I was literally by his bedside.
We hired a banker. I didn't know he had a criminal background, but I didn't look at the agreement, but he put in the agreement that he was going to take 7% of our thing. It was truly like a scary thing, you know, like that mistakes that people make.
There's more to the financial services industry than just managing money. Money comes and goes, but let's focus on the person.
When I sold my business, I didn't understand. I was getting pitched by everyone. I was like, yeah, like put money there, put money there, put money there. And like a lot of the stuff I invested in is not beating the S&P. Hey guys, we got another fun episode today with Gabriel Shaheen, CEO and founder of Falcon Wealth. Did I say that correctly?
Falcon Wealth Planning is the full name.
Falcon Wealth Planning. You know, he's in the wealth management space. We know that because look at what, you know, he's wearing a suit.
I know, I feel overdressed a little bit.
I wear, you know, a maroon shirt and sweatpants, and he's wearing a suit. But today we're here to discuss your herpes on your lip and how that's allowed you to get more business than any other wealth manager. How that the herpes on the lip, the canker sore, whatever you call it. It's beautiful. Look at that, baby.
You know, it was funny when they said I'm sitting here. I was like, it's a 50-50 chance if you're going to see it or not. But now the cold sore, I call it herpes. It's actually HRV1. HRV2 is the genital herpes.
Okay.
That's the one you don't want.
You don't want that. So
yeah,
the big takeaway from this podcast before we jump into the meat and potatoes is men don't want HRV2 on their
balls. Or one if you think about it.
Okay.
Well, what did you think? That's how two starts. It has to start somewhere. So it probably starts with one, and you just go a little too reckless.
Yeah, or you know, just don't suck on your own balls. That's the big takeaway is like,
don't kiss your own ass.
Yeah, don't kiss your own ass because you're gonna have some issues there, buddy. But
that's all right. Let me write that down.
Some people
take a note.
Some people like to kiss their own ass. We're not gonna have that on this podcast. But anyway, Gabe, you're an interesting man. You're an entrepreneur. I met you through this group called Tiger 21. For those that don't know Tiger 21, it's a collective of rich people that meet once a month and talk about 13 of us and talk about random shit that rich people do. It's like this group of rich people that talk about investing, longevity, want to live long, we want to make more and more and more money, we want to eat good food, and you know, it's like a bunch of bougie shitheads that just, you know, fucking hang out all day, you know, and like we have nothing better to do, and it's like
first world problems.
First world problem. We talk about our first world problems, and you know, obviously I don't fit in. I'm trying hard to fit in, but I made friends with Gabe because Gabe is a bit of a degenerate like me, and like, you know, we looked at each other. We're like, wow, we're kind of cut from the same cloth, except he wears suits and I wear sweatpants. But other than that, we're very similar personalities. But Gabe is one of the smartest minds beyond being an entrepreneur. He's one of the smartest minds in investing, and I get a lot of questions around investing. You know, people from all different asset classes. You know, I just made $300,000, $400,000 as an example. Where do I put that money? Having someone in your network like Gabe Shaheen that like can like tell you, Steve, you're doing something fucking stupid. Don't do that. It's been a way that I've saved a lot of money and you know, frankly, not lost money. But Gabe, thanks for coming on. Tell us your entrepreneur story, because you have a fantastic story. You know, the thing that I keep thinking about is one of the saddest things I've ever heard is how your father passed away with, you know, you could tell the story, but like I just thought that was like, I always think about that of like, just, you know, nothing is promised tomorrow, you know?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's first off, super excited to be here. This is great. Yeah, from an entrepreneur story, I mean, my dad, he was a business owner. Now, was he an entrepreneur? I call him a business owner. He ran a shoe store. I mean, wow. So that's, I wouldn't call that a full-on entrepreneurial journey, but it did learn, like, hey, you work on limited hours. You got to do what you do. You get out what you put in. And yeah, like at 59, right, you're supposed to get a colonoscopy. Goes in for a colonoscopy. You know, they got the pull-ups there, you know, pre-cancer stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Scooped him up, punctured a colon. Died a week later. And so, you know, as like traumatizing as that was, right, I was super close to my dad. And then like on top of that, like I was there like the whole time. I took him back to the hospital. I stayed with him all night. And then like I was there when he died. Like I was literally by his bedside. Like when they pronounced him dead, I was telling him, keep working on. And then they were like telling me like, hey.
How old were you?
At the time, good question. So what? Born in 84, that was 2008. My birthday's October. So I was 23, about to turn 24.
Wow.
So, and I experienced that. I experienced him like literally dying by my bedside. And for something that was like so emotional for me, I don't even think I cried like twice ever in my life prior to him dying. And now I get like a little teary eyed during movies and stuff. But like my point is, it's like that just made me who I am today. So like now I can talk to people that have gone through that. Like, listen, people come and talk to me when they sell a business, retire, inherit money. Like death there has to be a triggering event. And I can actually look them in the eye and say, listen, I know what it feels like to be by the bedside of someone that you love dearly that's dying. So like I look at it as a positive. You have to, right? Or you're going to be pissed at life. I look at it as a positive of who I am today.
Wow. I mean, as someone who also had, someone close to me, die in a hurricane, obviously I mentioned it in previous podcasts, but, it's like you kind of just take for granted a lot. The people that you love are going to be there for you tomorrow. They're going to be there the next day. And I think that we got to stop doing that as a society, is just taking for granted people. Like, like taking for granted friendships. Call people up that you care about. I mean, before we jump in, call people up that you care about. Check in with them. See how they're doing. Like it's just, we get too busy, too overwhelmed with whatever we have going on in our minds that we take it for granted. You obviously never thought that your dad was healthy, right? He had
healthy. Still had bigger biceps than I did.
Yeah,
from the day he died.
Bigger biceps and like, you're 23, you're, what's going through your mind at the time is you're trying to probably get laid. You're trying to, make money. And the same thing that's going through every 23-year-old kid's, how do I get laid? How do I make money? How do I get laid? How do I make money? It's like, it's the same, repeat going. But anyway, let's talk about business. So you start this Falcon, you think of most wealth managers, for me, as someone who sold a business, I've been pitched by all of them, and I fucking hate all of them, and they just annoy me, and it's just like, all right. And
they're very hateable.
Yeah, they're very hateable, and they're all like, they're all with big banks, and I love, my banker people. I have nothing negative, but like they all sell you the same stuff, stocks, and do this, do that, and they all make. They're never like transparent about how much money they make on what they put you in, So it's always like, how much money do you make on, So like for you. I'd love for you to just break down, how does your business work and how do you work with others?
Yeah. So I'm happy you asked that, only because like I built a firm as a fee-only wealth management firm, and I'm an independent firm. So I don't have a broker-dealer like a Merrill Lynch, a Morgan Stanley, a Goldman Sachs, and anybody. So I can give advice to anybody, and their money can be held anywhere. We choose Fidelity and Charles Schwab because of the pricing. That's where a majority of our clients' assets are. But building that out was unique because I thought to myself, like, man, I'm not going to make any commissions. Like, that's weird. Yeah. That's how you make all the money in the industry. And so it's like, okay, so what are you going to sell? I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to sell brain. And that was kind of the big differentiator for me, was selling brain. And it actually came down to when my father passed away, and in 2008. And then all of a sudden, like my brother, who is 16 at the time, like he could have been eligible for Social Security benefits because he was a minor. That would have went to my mom. And it wasn't until my neighbor's wife passed away across the street when my mother and him were talking during the morning process, when it came up like, hey, are you collecting, because he also had a young child, are you collecting this benefit? My mom had no clue. She goes to me. I'm in the industry, like, Gabe, how do you not know this? And it hit me right there on the spot, that there's more to the financial services industry than just managing money. Yeah. Let's focus on the person. Money comes and goes, but let's focus on the person.
Let's talk about this for a sec, because I didn't understand this, because I never had money growing up. So I never, I was not the guy that the wealth management people were like chasing down. Steve, no. I didn't see them. They didn't see me. It was like a whole other underworld that I never knew existed. So what Gabe said is the world of, like, there's two types of wealth managers. There's fee only, which you are, which means that people just pay you a flat fee. It's like, hey, you want me to give you advice and tell you which investments to go. I'm going to charge you X, whatever that number is, and I make no money by telling you to go into that fund or going into that fund.
We get paid directly from the client. There is no third parties. This industry is, it's a tricky, we can argue at times, shady industry.
Very shady. So versus, other wealth managers who, what are they called? They're called, what is the word?
We're the fiduciaries, the 100% of the time. There's also fee-based, then there's the commission-based advisor.
Okay.
And then there's this something in the middle that Wall Street created, which is fee-based, which is to confuse everybody. They always say, Gabriel, are you fee-based? I'm like, no, I'm fee only. Fee-based can do what we do and say they're a fiduciary, and then at any given moment, take off that hat and start selling your product and make commission.
Wow.
So it's like a shady.
So fee-based is kind of like, I kind of want to fuck you, but I'm not fucking you. And then you have the commission only guys who are like, yo, I'm just going to fuck you and not tell you. I'll put you in stuff that you won't lose money, but you also won't know that I'm making money. I'm only putting you in stuff that I make money on, and I'm not going to tell you that. So I'm just going to like never discuss it with you. And
well, hopefully you could still make money with commission-based people. Or if that's the case, they're just Ponzi schemes, right? So it's just more expensive. You're paying a premium for the big names.
So a case in point, we talk about structured notes. This asset class of structured notes, and I go through Gabe. I say Gabe won't charge me a fee because he's my homie, but he'll give me 18% on the structured note. That same structured note, if I go directly through a bank or a commission only place, I probably only see 14%, right? And so like you might not know it, but like you're getting, especially people that don't have a ton of money, like let's say you have a very small net worth and every dollar counts. You probably want to work with just a fee-based solution versus a commission only. But kind of go through that. Like when you're making a couple $100,000 a year, you're trying to get to that next level. You want your money to work for you. You don't have a ton of money. Where are you putting your money?
Yeah, most people just say put in SPY, the S&P 500, and chill.
Yeah.
And that makes sense for a lot of people because you got a couple $100,000. Listen, it's not a small amount of money, but it's not millions of dollars. And so by putting it into something that gets market-like return, that's liquid, that's low cost, like there's a secret in my industry. They're all about the same shit when it comes to investing. We all have access to the same stuff. Actually, on the fee-only side, we actually have access to more because we don't have the aggressive compliance, so we can do a lot more different types of investment. But the idea is the same. So that's why I built the firm the way I built it. It's all about value. If we all can do investments, what else can you offer? So for me, I thought instead of selling product, right? You live by performance, you die by performance. How about we sell brain? And that's why the focus on tax planning was everything. Understanding the person, helping with real estate, businesses, whatever the case is, structuring that up front to save money in taxes, that could save and make you way more than the stock market could ever take away from you.
So it's like a vertically integrated financial company that you're kind of like Wells Fargo or like without being, owning the bank accounts, but you're like, yo, listen, come to me for wealth management. I'll help you find you great opportunities. I'll do your taxes and I'll, do you do insurance or mortgages or no?
Yeah, we refer that out. I mean, we can't do insurance because of the inherent conflict of interest. You have to make a commission. Whether you're selling a health insurance policy or a life insurance policy, there's an inherent conflict of interest because of the commission that you get. We're not allowed to be incentivized for that. All my staff members, all my advisors, we have 40 plus locations, we have almost 100 people, and everybody is salaried. Well, why? Because now don't get me wrong, we're not a nonprofit, right? We're a profitable company, we have a profit sharing, but like the point is like they hire somebody, they don't get paid. That doesn't affect them directly.
Got it. That's cool. So you're not a nonprofit. Good good point to know. Like I wondered how you afford all these expensive suits and these watches. The whole time I assumed you weren't a nonprofit, but
happy we got that cleared.
Yeah, happy you got that clear. So so you're going to be pitched a lot of alternative investments. You go, if you're a person that doesn't understand, like me, doesn't understand money, when I sold my business, every wealth manager and their mother was hitting me up saying that they have all the greatest opportunities of what you call alternative investments. This idea that like, hey, there's a magical real estate deal that's going to pay me 25% a year, or this magical this and magical that. So the one thing I learned, Gabe, from you, which I thought was really interesting, is evaluate every single opportunity, whether it's venture capital or, investment, against the potential return of the S&P. I know that sounds very rudimentary, but when I sold my business, I didn't understand. I was getting pitched by everyone. I was like, yeah, like put money there, put money there, put money there. And like none of it, like a lot of it is a lot of the stuff I invested in is not beating the S&P.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing because that's the standard. That's the global economy or the U.S. economy. And so if that averages 10 to 12% a year, like and it's fully liquid, and yes, you can lose money, but you understand how it works.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do something that's not regulated as much? Why would you do something that's more expensive? Why would you do something that's not as liquid? And oh, by the way, has similar returns? That makes no sense. That's like literally dating somebody that's uglier, broke, worse personality. Like, why would you ever even consider dating that person? You wouldn't. So there's a standard. And everybody has their own standard. And for me, the universal standard is the S&P 500. And so like everybody wants somebody who's somewhat attractive, somewhat of a personality, and someone polite. Like there's core things that I think every human would want, right? And so for that, it's just find that standard. And if you're getting that 15% versus let's just say 10, so you have to weigh now to you what's important. What's the safety like? What's the durability of it? What's the actual investment and what's the liquidity, fees, so on? And if for you it makes sense, then hey, move forward. But for most people on these alternatives, there's so much crap hidden inside of there. It's difficult to extrapolate what you're actually investing in.
So what's defined as an alternative investment is anything that's not the S&P, right? Anything that's a stock.
Good question. I would say it's something that's not publicly traded.
Not publicly traded.
Yeah, so it's like not easily accessible. You can't just sell it at any given moment. So there is some type of liquidation restriction is what I've seen a majority of the alternatives are.
So some type of liquidation. So you can't just get liquidity. So I guess crypto wouldn't be an alternative asset.
That's a great question. It's a unique one. I mean, it is an alternative asset because it's not on the traditional stock exchanges. So maybe I should alter what I said. Yeah. It's not on the traditional stock exchanges. It's not on the NASDAQ. It's not on the New York Stock Exchange. So it's not something that can instantly be traded on an exchange that's held at a Morgan Stanley, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, and so on. So I'm going to alter what I said because what you said made sense. Bitcoin, in fact, direct is an alternative. And guess what? You can buy that directly on Charles Schwab, Fidelity now through ETFs. Yeah. So like there is some nuances to what you're saying. So that's a great comment. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so you're focused on helping people not make stupid decisions with, a lot of people a lot of the questions I get, Steve, you sold a business. What did you do with your money? Where do I invest it? Let's say I came to you, Gabe, I just made, $5 or $10 million. I sold my business. How are you like setting up my $5 or $10 million so it grows without me having to worry about making money again? Like where are you telling me to put my money? Yeah, I love that question. Because the first part is like, hey, if you sold it for $5-10 million, you probably have a taxable event. Yes. Let's see what we could do to save you money on taxes first and foremost. Because if you could save $1-2-3 million in taxes, well, you just made 10 to 30% on day one just by being tax smart. And what do you do to save on taxes? Like what are some of your strategies for saving on taxes? Yeah, I mean, there are some investments that you could do, which you could be coded as like a professional investor, and you have a third party do it. And you can actually create losses in the portfolio. It's actually pretty freaking sweet. If you sold stock in your company, you have capital gains. You can invest the money, create losses through options, and by doing that, you can offset the capital gains that you pay. And this is market-like return. You're just buying the individual stocks of the S&P 500. So you need at least $1 million to do this. We can't do this for Joe Schmo. But you're buying the individual stocks and you're writing options contracts to realize losses. I love that idea, especially that you're going to get market-like return. So you could explain for those that don't understand. A lot of us are not the financial wizards, but like an options contract. So you told me that you've made this might be confidential, but you did pretty well on the Apple and doing options on Apple. But when you say an options contract, what exactly does that mean? Yeah, because we hear it all the time, right? Yeah. So buying one contract, right? You have to agree on a price. So let's just say ABC stock's at $100 a share. All right. And so let's say you feel it's going to go up. You're going to say like, okay, I'm going to say in the next 6 months, it's going to go up to at least $120 a share. So you actually make money from that, whatever that strike price is of 120 and up. So if it goes to 130, you made $10 a share. Now, one contract, this is where it gets like numbers, right? Yeah. One contract equals 100 shares. So let's just say that contract, you own the rights of Apple for 6 months or whatever the stock is for 6 months, right? You had to pay $5 for that option contract.
Yeah.
So $5,
For
and
the
you own
option to buy.
for the option to buy those 100 shares. So if it's $5 a contract, that's $500 that you spent.
Yeah.
Well, if the stock is trading at $200, if you had to buy 100 shares of $200, that's 20 G's.
Yeah.
Here you only had to spend $500
For the option to buy.
For the option to buy.
110.
or I gave the example of 120,
Yeah,
right?
120,
So for the first $20 it makes, you make zero money.
Sure.
But if it goes from $120 to $150, that's $30 a share times 100 shares. That's $3,000. You spent $500 and you made $3,000.
Yeah. So you're betting. You could bet, but you could also bet on the short or the long.
That's exactly right. So that's where it really comes in. And there's some really cool other alternatives and strategies out there that I really love, where you could buy a 2-year put option on the S&P 500. And then that way, if it dropped, you protected your money. And then you could write weekly call options as well. And you can get a pretty conservative net of fees. I mean, I shouldn't say pretty conservative because anything is possible, but you can make that 10 to 15% with very little risk. But what's the catch? There's always a catch, Steve. The catch is to everything is you can't touch your money for 2-3 years. Like, so are you comfortable with that and just getting that monthly income stream? Some people are not. And so that's where it really has to be the rich get richer in that aspect. And the rich get richer sounds pretty similar to my book, but it's really based on, like, you have to be an accredited investor, which is at least $1 million, or at times a qualified purchaser, which means you need at least $5 million.
So you said something really interesting, which I don't think a lot of people value when they think about investing, which is liquidity. That word is, what I've learned as an investor is that's probably the most important word to understand. Like, if you're going to look at evaluate an investment, getting to liquidity, is the most important thing. Because what do you need most? You might have the greatest opportunity that comes for you to invest in a product, but if you don't have the liquidity because you're tied up in 6 or 7 other investments, you're kind of fucked. So, like, when you think of like liquidity, like, how much of your total net worth? So, like, let's just use round numbers. Like, let's say you're worth $2 million, right? Total, like, all your assets. How much of your money do you keep in? And let's say, like, you spend $200,000 a year in, like, expenses. How much of your money do you keep liquid just to live your lifestyle?
So the answer is always going to be it depends. But let me at least tell you why it depends. Because are you still working?
You're still working. You have a salary. You're making a salary, but you're not killing it. But you say you're making $150K your salary or $200K your salary. Your total net worth is encompassing of, like, some real estate. You made some cash. What I'm trying to get at is, like, what percentage of your total net worth do you keep in cash, to support the lifestyle you live?
Yeah, I mean, depending on your liquidity, how secure your job is, for a business owner like myself, liquidity is everything. I need liquidity. So it could be, for somebody like myself, 25% of my net worth, or maybe not my net worth, but 25% of my maybe liquid net worth may be in cash, just waiting for opportunity. What if something happens in the business? What if I want to open a new location, or whatever the case may be? But for other people, it could be 1%. It could be 3 to 6 months of cash of whatever you spend on a monthly basis. So if somebody is making $200,000 a year, let's call that $18,000 a month. You multiply that by 3, that could be 60 to maybe 100,000 in cash is all they should have. Versus somebody like you and I, it might be a little bit different, because we might want to start a business. We might want to buy a property. We might want to open something else. We don't know what it is.
So the higher net worth, sorry, I'm just digging deep because this is a question a lot of people, including myself, want to know. The higher net worth person, let's say you have $1 million a year. It costs for you to live your lifestyle. Your lifestyle could be, paying mortgages, paying, your expensive lifestyle. Like, how much, if you have how much of your liquid net worth, are you keeping 3 years liquid, 2 years liquid? Are you keeping 1 year liquid? Like, what I'm trying to get at is everyone wants to know, like, how much liquidity should they keep versus how much. Some people, I mean, you probably know people too, like, that are worth. I know a guy that's probably worth $500-600 million. He keeps under $1 million liquid.
Yeah. I mean, there's no exact science to it. I'll say that. But if somebody's spending $1 million a year, and let's just say they're bringing in on consistent income from rental income, other investments they're doing, let's say $500,000.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, where's that extra $500,000 coming from? It has to come from some investment portfolio. So what I've seen from people, from individuals, high net worth individuals is, well, they're investing maybe 200 million of that. Well, 200 million at 5% is 10 million a year. They only need $1 million. So like technically they don't need to invest the extra money that they have. So they leave it in cash for opportunities. These people love deals. They're hustlers by nature. So they just want, whether it's a property, whether it's an investment opportunity, or everybody's best case scenario is a market meltdown so they can buy in cheap. Like that's what I see, but they have to achieve their goal. And their goal is they're spending $1 million a year, 10 million a year, or 500,000 a year, is they need to invest to maintain their lifestyle, whether it's in real estate, other alternatives, or the stock market, and then everything else, they can do what they want.
Got it. Okay, that's interesting. So you own Falcon, does taxes, wealth management. You've built a great business. What is your goal with the business? Do you want to sell the thing? Is that your goal? Are you eventually going to sell Falcon and make that or are you going to hold it? Because we were talking earlier on another podcast about once you sell your business, what do you do next? I mean, and I'm in that boat of what do you do next? I've sold a business, and you're all of your kind of energy every day, you're thinking about your business. Well, when you take that away, what do you do next?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good question because it's part of who I am. It's my identity.
Yeah.
Like I'm a financial planner. That's what I do. So, I mean, for me, I'm just going to continue to grow it. They call Falcon, my company, the Fisher of financial planning.
Yes.
They sell individual stocks. We do financial planning. So we grow a lot on volume. We get 3,000 incoming inquiries a month.
Wow.
And so we're just going to continue to grow it. I mean, listen, it cash flows well. My people are happy. We're looking to roll out equity so everybody participates in the growth of the organization and the company. So I don't think we're going to stop that. So I think we're just going to keep going. I have no interest. And I've been offered some ridiculous money for my company. Like, it's insane. And so clearly
9 figures from what you told last.
Yeah. So, I mean, exactly. So like, truly, it's not about the money anymore. You know what I mean? If it was, I would just cash out. Does anybody really need more than $100 million? Like truly, no, you don't. You can have the nicest house in town, drive the nicest cars, go on the nicest trips. You don't need more. So clearly it's not about money. So like for me, it's funny. It's part of the identity. I mean, we kind of joked around. Just at Tiger, just like, hey, what other things can we do? So like for me, it's funny. I keep myself busy. So like, yes, I created and opened a tax practice. I have another company. I created a marketing company. And so now it's like, hey, you know what? We talk about what we like and don't like about some of these peer groups that we're in, like Tiger. And, just part of me, it's like, hey, you know what? I think I could do it better. You know what? Let's create our own, Steve. You want to be busy? Let's create our own.
I mean, it's not a bad idea.
Right? It seems like to be good.
A lot of people, I know me included, we feel like a deep sense of longing, of having a tribe and having people that are similar to us. I think the reality is once you hit a certain amount of wealth, you're looked at differently. I know for me, I'm looked at differently in my family. Like my family, I used to have a mom I love my mom. I don't want to say anything negative, but like maybe it's my mom's older age, but she looks to me as like the person that solves every problem. And at some point, as well as your other family, just because you have money means you've solved every problem. And at some point, you want to have relationships with people that, not just your family, but that are genuine and are back and forth, or like two-sided relationships. And I think what I've learned after you have success is that a lot of the relationships change and they evolve. And like, I wasn't prepared to really understand the evolution of relationships of like, I felt like I call my friends who I grew up with in Jersey and just be like, hey guys, let's go play hoops or something. And now it's very different. Now it's like, no, you're a wealthy guy and there's always an ask. There's not always, but it's just different. And so like, I wasn't overly prepared for that moment of change. And so, you brought up building communities and as a business or as an idea. And I'm just like, that's a truly unique thing, because if you could bring people together that all have a common bond, that all have similar challenges and pain points, hey, we're a bunch of dudes who've overcome a lot of success, who've overcome a lot, have become successful. That, that's really interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot to it because you're going through it now. Well, what if somebody's a couple years older
Yeah,
than you? That's like, hey, let me tell you what's going to happen. I say it all the time in my business. I'm like, listen, you're going to retire once, maybe twice in your life.
yeah,
I retired 30 times alone last month.
yeah.
Like, let me tell you what you're about to go through. It's the
Sure.
same idea when a peer group, and that's what attracted me to Tiger 21, was like, hey, you're going to be with like-minded individuals who've been vetted, who, oh, by the way, have a lot to lose. Like, they're not going to just do stupid shit, you
Yeah.
know? And so I think there's something to it of a community and being a part of a community and helping somebody out, talking to them, talking through what they're about. What if someone's about to sell their business? Like, who can you really talk to? Like nobody really. And so I think there is something to be said about having a community.
There's a deep loneliness to selling a business. I think we could all agree to that like when you come from a lower income, area, like I didn't go to Yale, I didn't go to Harvard, I didn't have an Ivy League connection where I could, or a fraternity where I'm like, hey guys, I'm selling Mute 6. What should I be looking out for? There was no one that I could really go to, Gabe. There's no, the most anyone in my family has ever made in their life is $70,000 a year. The most think about that. Many generations, New York peddlers, and I come from 3 generations of New York City, lower to middle income Jewish families. Very humble beginnings. Where do you go? Like where does, like, when you sell a business, where do you go? Who do you rely on? Who's going to give you unbiased advice? Like, I struggle with that. I made so many mistakes when I sold Mute 6. Like we hired a banker who was a total like, criminal. He had a criminal background. I didn't know he had a criminal background, but I kind of don't want my investment bankers to have a criminal background. I prefer they don't have a criminal background. But and then he put all a bunch of, I didn't look at the agreement, but he put in the agreement that he was going to take 7% of our thing, and I ended up not working with him. But
wow,
it was truly like a scary thing. Like that mistakes that people make. Because we're not experienced. There's a lot of sharks out there, and I guess, like, when you think of community, who do you go to, like, when you're trying to make it,
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a network, I mean, I went to Arizona State University. It's
Yeah.
great to go when you
Fun
want
school.
Fun school, right? For parties, dude, I could tell you what parties to go to through Scottsdale
Yeah.
and Tempe all day long. But like, yeah, selling a business, starting a business, and here's the thing: you said it already, man. It's so true. Like the core that you have, it changes, man. The friends that you have, just it evolves. I feel like every time you double where you're at, like you lose 50% of. It could be your staff. It could be your friends. Hell, it could even be family. Like everybody wants you to do well in life. Very few people want you to do better than them.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to hang out with somebody and worry about if they can pay for their meal.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I don't want to, like, there's some people like that want me to be successful. But when I started to surpass them in the success level, they stopped calling.
Yeah.
They stopped picking up my phone. I heard they were talking shit about me. Like, what is there to talk shit about? Like, dude, we're like, yeah, maybe it's my business too, right? My job is to make people great, like successfully, financially well. So maybe I'm just wired differently. But I've also seen people like you generally just want people to be great, to win.
I mean, it makes me feel good when I see others winning. I had a buddy who just sold his business for $80 million. He called me up and he's like, yo, man, I did it, man. And I was so proud of him. I mean, we were on a journey together, and I saw how much he grinded, and it made me feel great inside. It truly did. And I think there's very few people in this world that really care about seeing other people win. As you start thinking of the next journey, you haven't sold a business yet, so you haven't seen, what that's, you haven't uncovered, the ins and outs of,
or the skeletons. I've definitely gone through the process. It's a drain, emotional, physical drain, to go through the financials, to do the meetings, to have them pry and ask questions and build out the LOI and just like all the nuances, going to the attorney, coming back to them. Like, it's an emotional roller coaster for sure.
I'll tell you a great story. So we're selling Mute 6, and they were going to do in the Wall Street Journal. They were going to put the purchase price of the transaction in the Wall Street Journal. And I called up the editor of the Wall Street Journal and I was like, "No, you do that, I'm going to sue you. I don't want my purchase price in the Wall Street Journal. And I remember the editor of the Wall Street Journal was like, why don't you want like the clout? I mean, he was like very surprised. He's like, don't you want the clout of like, hey, I sold for X amount of dollars? I was like, no, I don't want anyone knowing. I'm paranoid. And you know where it comes from, Gabe? It comes from, I sold drugs as a kid. I sold, I was a guy that
You're a hustler.
I was a hustler. And I remember when I was a kid, the best advice I got from a big, dude who was very, very successful at selling pills. He was, multi-millionaire underworld drug dealer. He was like, Steve, no one needs to know what you got. He's like, only bad. It's almost like that idea of like only bad things happen after 9 p.m. When you're out. And so
the freaks come out at night.
Yeah, the freaks come out at night. Well, you know what they say, like if you're an athlete, if you're whoever, like only bad things happen at night. Well, he's like, only bad things happen. What he was trying to say was, if you flaunt, only bad things will happen. Yeah. And so I took that advice very like strongly, and I was like, I don't want anyone to know what we made. I want it to be a secret. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want people looking at me. And it really like it helped. But then I got then I got audited by the IRS because they read in the Wall Street Journal that we sold our business and like But so my advice is don't ever. Don't flaunt your money and always pay your taxes. Always pay your taxes.
Well, also, like if you're asking for attention, you're going to get the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Like it's not one-sided. You know what I mean? So if you want to brag about how much money you got, if you want to flaunt it on social media, like be ready for the repercussions of that. You're going to have people with ill intentions always. And as high as you get, the more you climb, they're going to try to pull you down.
The other thing I realized is like, I never like got laid a lot as a kid when I was broke. I never, and like, and like, I there's now that I'm a married man, I've realized that like, there's a lot, a check mark on your back when you sell your business of people that don't want to actually that don't have the greatest intentions, that want to like, that want to be around you and get with you, and like, especially women. And like, thankfully I got married very quickly once I sold and I was like off the market. But I honestly wouldn't want to be single after.
You would never get married, right? You probably would never get married.
Would never get married. I mean,
right.
Well, I mean, you'd be.
You're a target.
It would be not only you'd be a target, but it would be impossible for you to settle. It would be like because you have all this like sugar, you have all this like kind of stimulant. Think of it like this. It's like you're like you have all this stimulant. And every day, and like, and you can talk all you want to your friends about, I want a family, I want this. You kind of do, you kind of don't, but like you're seeing the good life. And like, I think that like I'm so lucky that I found my wife. That like she's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I'm just gonna be honest.
She's a sweetheart
on this podcast, and I know you feel the same about your wife. And like, I'm just happy that I met her before I sold my company.
I think about that all the time, right? You have blessed with 2 beautiful kids. I got 3 kids, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And we were hanging out, you and I and our buddy over at Gravitas.
Yeah.
And then he said something, and it's like, the more you start climbing, the more successful you become, the more you start engaging in other activities, right?
Yeah.
It's like people start paying attention to you. It's not like back when we were grinding, we're working all day, coming home at 9, 10 o'clock and just like eating and then going to bed, waking up early and going to work again. Now that you've had an exit, you have extra time. People see you around. And I don't know what the radar is that certain ladies have, but like they're paying attention. And it's like, it gets a little harder. Like, thank God I don't go out often. I don't do any of that. But like at the same time, like the 1 or 2 times I do a quarter, it's like, why they keep looking over here, man? Like, why are they coming and talking to us? Why are they flirting with us?
Why are they flirt? Why are they so nice? Why are you so nice to me?
Yeah, I know. Why are you so nice to me?
You're not supposed to be nice.
Where were you 20 years ago?
Yeah, no, they didn't care about us 20 years ago, But like, it's interesting. I try to post on Instagram. Everything is pictures of me, my wife, and kids, and like everything. And I still get, messages every once in a while from women in other zip codes and stuff of just like, hey Steve, I'm like, and it'll just, it'll be nice, but I'm like, yo, it's like 10 o'clock. Like, I don't know you like that. Like, why are you texting me at 10 o'clock? And And then I always just tell them like, listen, like I'm married and like just being real, I'm like, I'm not like interested in any, I'm married. And so like, but I feel like if I wanted to live that life, and this is a deeper exponential question, there's a lot of people who never want to get married, who never want to have kids.
Right. And I respect that because at least they're making that decision and know the outcome.
But what I will say is like beyond like selling my business, beyond all the success of, coming here and having all these, the greatest thing, like I wouldn't trade anything for my kids. My kids are like and I'm sure you feel the same way. You have 3 kids and you never know that though, man. You never understand it until you have kids.
It's a selfless act, man. I mean, it's that's what's hard about it. But you're so true, man, because it's also more than just us now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's legacy.
Yeah.
And then there was like actual legacy, like kids, like these are mine. And so I always thought legacy, you don't need kids to have a legacy. That's actually what I thought. And then you start realizing it's like, actually, that is a piece of your legacy at the end of the day.
It's all you got, man. It's like, and like I obviously I've been through some mental health issues after I sold my business and struggling to find purpose. I can't imagine what that would have been like without kids and a wife. Like how magnified that would be, how like little purpose you would find in just going out and trying to be a single guy in your 30s and 40s. And so, I just feel like as hard as it gets, you feel lucky every day that you just have your wife and kids,
Yeah, I mean, it's a part of, yet again, your identity. I said earlier, I'm a financial planner, but I'm also a father.
Yeah.
I'm also a husband. And I like it. And I like doing it. And I actually love them, right? So, like, say what you want, but, like, you got to go into it knowing what it is. It's not always rainbows and butterflies. But at the same time, like, it's a humbling experience. You're thinking about more than just yourself. And I remember, dude, like, I was, like, 21, 22, like, maybe 23, 24, 25. And like, clients would show me pictures of their grandkids, right?
Yeah.
And people would show me pictures of the kids. I'm like, oh, that's nice. Like, I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry.
I
didn't care.
You don't get it until, I'm telling you.
Until you have kids. Then you're like,
kids,
oh, let me see that again.
You don't get it. You don't understand it. Like I'll be walking around town and I'll see someone with their little baby and that will remind me of Poppy or Lottie, my 2 girls. And I'll just be like, wow, like that's so cute and just so, I don't know, it just tickles me in a way. I'm like, that's so cool, like that. You had a kid, and like, I feel bad for all the people that never have kids. They never know what it's like, and they'll never understand, and there'll be a piece of them that's always missing.
Yeah, no, it's true. And then they'll send me pictures of them halfway around the world at a New Year's party that I would never be able to go to, at least in the next, I shouldn't say never, in the next 20 years, I won't be able to go to.
Yeah.
So, but for us.
And then we go to our wives. This is great, Gabe. We'll show a picture of our single rich friend posting pictures of him with all these hot girls, right? And we'll show our wives and we'll say, look how miserable he is.
No, man, you are just a smarter guy than me. Yeah. I need to be like, well, look at him. Yeah, I got to say, look how miserable they look. They have to do this to pretend they're happy.
Do this to pretend they're happy. He's in Rio with with all a bunch of Brazilian girls.
And he's a smart dude.
And I just go to my wife and I pull up the phone. We'll be in bed one night and I'll be, I pull up the Instagram. I'll be like, you see, that's my friend. He just sold his business and he's in Rio right now. But like, deep down, he's got some mental health issues.
That's what I do with Dan Brazilian, by the way. When I see him and she catches me looking at his feed, I'm just like, what are you doing? What are you looking at? I'm like, man, this guy, my buddy, he's so sad. Look,
we have to help. We have to help him.
He needs 10 ladies. I only need 1.
Yeah, we have to help him. It's like the wife is always like, we have to help him. And it's like the women are always,
don't invite him over though, babe.
Yeah, don't invite him over. Don't bring him anywhere near you. It's like they don't want you because they don't want you to be influenced. They're like, because like we're men and we're like, part of being a man is like being easily influenced by bad. It's like we could easily be brought back into something else. But yeah, it's, to make a long story short, there's a lot of stuff I wasn't prepared for to be successful, and like I always just love to just like discuss it and kind of just shoot the shit.
Yeah, I listen, man. That's what we're good at. I really think I have fun with it. It's awesome, and you get to learn from it too, man. I mean, it's like, and for me, I feel like sometimes I have the best job in the world because I really, for the most part, like 2 things. Number 1, what is my job? I help rich people get richer. But number 2, like I get to learn from these people, understand who they are, what they've done, what's the worst thing they've done, the best things they've done, and I get to learn. I always say a smart person, right? We learn from our own mistakes, but a smarter person will actually learn from others' mistakes, and I think I'm blessed in that regard.
Yeah, we're lucky, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Before we wrap, is there anything that you wanna discuss with or anything else that you wanna share with the universe?
No, I mean, Steve, this has been great. I mean, I met you at Tiger 21, and it sounds like you got some great ideas for other peer groups and things like that. And so I think
Other ideas.
always ideas. So I think you always got some cool things up your sleeve. So I look forward to being with you and part of that journey.
Yeah, bro. Look forward to it.